Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom, and it's been a minute since I've filmed last. It's probably been close to a month. You guys will be seeing this in 2023. I'm filming this on the 25th of July of 2022, and I can't remember the last time I did a video. I broke my leg landing wrong at a rock climbing gym, so I haven't been in the mood to film lately. I think I've done a little bit scheduling wise working on for this 2023 season. But on to what we are covering. So this is my first graphic novel. So this is The Secret Garden on 81st Street. So it's a retelling of The Secret Garden, which I will link in the description. I've actually covered the film and the book for that, and I think that's a 1995 film that I covered, because I'm pretty sure that's the one I own. The author of this one is Ivy Noelle Weir, and it's illustrated by Amber Padula. So this is a very good book. It's a great graphic novel, and it's a very good retelling, and it's a very good modern take on this with a lot of very good messages to it. So if you're unfamiliar with the Secret Garden, the original novel from I believe it's the early 1900s, might be late 1800s. I'm not looking that up right now. But that tells the story of a young girl by the name of Mary Lennox. She's English, her parents, and she grew up in India. This is colonial India. Her father worked there. Her mother was a socialite. She was pretty much handed over to the Indian servants to raise. So she had no social skills. She was spoiled rotten. Her parents are killed in a cholera epidemic. So she's shipped off to live with her uncle, Archibald Craven, in the middle of Yorkshire in England. She's 10 years old at the time. So Archibald Craven is his wife, his now past wife, Lilith, I believe was her name, was the sister to Mary's father. So he's her uncle by marriage. So she goes there, pretty much she's picked up by the housekeeper, Mrs. Medlock, she's not evil. The film really makes her out to be evil. She's not. I talk about that. She's actually very nice. To an extent, but she's in a difficult situation. She has this 10-year-old girl who has no social skills, who's alone in a giant manor. Her uncle's periodically gone. He's a hunchback, and he's massively depressed. So she meets Martha, who's a young maid in the very, very large manor, who eventually, along with Martha's brother Dickon, teach Mary to play and learn and enjoy being outdoors. Eventually, Mary finds the key to her aunt's locked up rose garden. And with the help of Dickon and Mr. Witherstaff, I'm mispronouncing his name, he's the head gardener, or one of the head gardeners, who's been actually sneaking into the garden and pruning the roses. Mary and Dickon's mother bring it back to life. Now, eventually, Mary discovers that she has a cousin, Colin. Colin is sickly. He thinks he's dying because everybody thinks he's dying, and he's convinced that the doctor, who is actually also his father's cousin, who would stand to inherit it, Colin dies, basically wants him to die, and that he has a lump on his back. He does not. And essentially, he's hysterical and very much like Mary was, because he's unsocialized and he's surrounded by servants who do whatever the heck he says. So Mary does not. And eventually they form a relationship. He gets into the garden and he starts learning to walk. And the whole story revolves around him and Mary learning to essentially find the good in themselves. So the main saying in the book is, where you tend a rose, a thistle may not grow. And essentially, the children, once they start entertaining gooder thoughts, they're happier people. So, and her father, Colin Craven, Lord Archibald Craven, comes back after a letter written to him by Martha and Dickon's mother, and he discovers his son is healthy and walking, and they hug and happily ever after. This book is a little different. So again, it takes place in the modern era. Mary is a young girl. She's living in Silicon Valley. She, again, doesn't have any social skills because her parents are working in startups. They're busy all the time. She does not see them. She goes to school online. Her entire world is on the internet. And she eats whatever in the house. So they various different microwave meals, or she calls out and orders food. So she's essentially self-sufficient, doesn't have any friends in real life, doesn't really go outside, and has really no relationship with her parents. They are killed in a car accident, and she is sent to live with her uncle Archie, who lives in New York City, who lives in a big manor in New York City, actually near Central Park. So she's sent there, and she's picked up by his personal assistant. Why can't I now? Medlock is now his personal assistant. And she's kind of looked after by Martha, who rents the apartment downstairs. So, and now she's in New York. Her uncle does not really have, he has internet, but he doesn't really have television or video games or anything, and he frowns upon those things. So she's kind of bored, and Martha essentially pushes her outside. Go to Central Park, we're down the street, and explores museums, and eventually she meets Dickon, and she kind of learns to spend time outside and interacting with other human beings, and kind of going on from there. And the garden is a rooftop garden. Now, the relationship in this one's a little different, and there's a reason for it. Archibald is gay. Archibald is gay. His husband died of a heart attack. So, Archibald is her direct relation. He is her mother's brother. So, that's how they have the relationship there. So she finds the key to this rooftop garden, which had been locked away because it had been her uncle's garden and her uncle's husband's garden that he loved. I can't remember what his name is in the book. I think it's Horatio. He's Asian. So, and as you can tell by the picture, this is Mary. She's African American. So yeah, there's a lot of mixed race here going on, which is very, very cool. But she unlocks that again with the help of Dickon, brings it back to life. Witherstaff is actually we do have a counterpart here who owns a little bodega down the street and was friends with Mary's uncle's husband, so to speak, to identify a difference between Archibald and his late husband. So then, again, we have crying going on. And she eventually goes upstairs and finds her cousin, Colin. Now, in this story, Colin is suffering from anxiety. He had gone to school. He had gone to museums. He had been out. But after his dad died, he, similar to as Archibald has become depressed and is never home, Colin basically has, he's pretty much agoraphobic. He doesn't really leave the house. He doesn't really come downstairs. And he's seeing a therapist. He's not physically ill. He's afraid something's going to happen because his dad died suddenly of a heart attack in the garden without warning. So it was basically he's afraid something's going to happen to him because, and again, he's Mary's age. So eventually he's seeing a therapist. Now, in the original story, there is a nurse. And the nurse does, in fact, encourage Mary to interact with Colin. She wants Mary there because Mary's bringing him out of his shell. This therapist is the same way. She explains to Mary what's really going on with Colin and that she can help him. And eventually he comes outside. He starts going to museums. He's still having some anxiety attacks. But eventually she shows him the garden. And he starts working in the garden and bringing the the garden to life. And throughout this time, Mary is asking questions of the bodega guy without actually telling him they brought the garden back to life. Eventually, obviously, Dickon is helping her. Dickon is Mary's is Martha's little brother, who goes to public school, but he also knows a lot about Central Park and all the gardens and the museums and stuff. So there is no mother figure here. Mary and Martha and Dickens' mother is not mentioned here. The letter, in this case, email that is eventually sent to Archibald Craven asking him to come home is sent by Medlock, suggesting that he should come home. Eventually, she finds out, and she's kind of angry, but then she realizes this is healing Colin. And, okay, this is a good thing. And she's the one who says, you need to come home. And he comes home, and they hug. They realize the garden has been brought back to life, and that they're happy, and that he's been running away from things. And then Mary, and this is kind of a touch on the film, at least the 1995 film, where Mary runs off, and her uncle comes and hugs her. And this concludes that properly, where he says, no, we're still a family. All because me and Colin are back together doesn't mean you're excluded. We're not going to forget you. The other thing that Mary is dealing with is Colin has memories of his dad. Obviously not Archibald, his other dad. And Mary doesn't really remember any happy memories of her parents. And she finds a picture of her uncle Archibald and her mother at this cabin. And she has a memory of her mother reading stories to her when she's little. And so she finally has that happy memory of her own parents, because she didn't think she had them. She wasn't sad because, just as in her counterpart in the previous book, in the original, she had no relationship with them. Though it does show at the beginning that her mother is trying to say goodbye to her, even though she's just not paying attention. She doesn't expect her parents to die. And she's just in her own world. She's busy playing a video game. So her parents, at least in this iteration, actually do in fact love her. It's just they're busy. Why in the other book, Mary Lennox's mother wants nothing to do with her. They don't care that she exists, essentially. But this one's also kind of different. It's a very, very good book. The illustrations are fantastic. Again, this is a graphic novel. So I kind of pull this open. This is the meeting of Mary and Dickon. And then, let's see if I can find some pictures of, see, there's her uncle, Archibald here. Very sad, very depressed man. She's using subways. Talking about rain. It's cold. Here's Colin. Finding them in the bedroom. Which, again, is something very similar that happens to the book. He goes to school online anyway. And they start spending time together. As I said, it's very good. It's the first real graphic novel I've read. And then you see the plans, and then you see he has his memories. That's his other dad. That's Colin's other dad. So let's see if I can find the name. It's like he has memories. Yeah, this is what she's talking about. He has memories. And then rather than a robin, there's a cat in this one, which is very, very cute. So, and she's sending emails. Here's the therapist. So the therapist is talking to him because he has panic attacks. And there we have pictures of Medlock. So that's what she looks like. She's the personal assistant. So, and then eventually he comes home. And there's the end of the book. So it's very, very well done. I highly recommend it if you're looking for, particularly if you're homeschool families, if you're reading both The Secret Garden, if you're reading The Secret Garden, add this to your curriculum, because it's also, it helps relate the story. Because the story is very much essentially the very, very same. These children are learning to appreciate the world around them, and they're learning to be better people and learning to, interact with humans. Other humans in real life, as opposed to in the case of Mary online, and pretty much the same with Colin, though of course he had previously gone to school, but he had, I think it's been like about 5 years since his dad died, so he was really little when he went to school. So, and now they're about 9 or 10, so he was a toddler. He was like preschool age when he went to school. And now he's obviously 10. So they're learning to, and of course it talks about Colin's anxiety and why he doesn't seem physically ill, he's psychologically ill. And they address that. And they address how it can feel very, very real when you have this conversation between Mary and Colin's therapist, where she talks about people go to the ER feeling like they're having a heart attack when they're having a panic attack. And how it's very, very real to him, and he is very sick. It's just not the type of sickness that it's easy to understand. And that's one of the other reasons that Archibald is not really going anywhere near his son, is because he does not understand what's going on. He doesn't understand why on earth his son Colin is suddenly having panic attacks. But again, he was a little boy and his dad suddenly dropped dead of a heart attack without warning in the garden, in a place that his dad had loved. So he was a little kid, he didn't fully understand, and thus the world became scary. And it's very, very hard to overcome that. And his dad was not helping, because his dad was grieving and ran away. So, which again is very similar to what happened in the original book, though Colin's mother died giving birth to him. So it's a different thing. So again, this is a great, and it's relatable. It allows you to, particularly young kids, to relate the old Victorian story to kind of a modern outlook. And again, the author and the illustrator do a fantastic job of doing this retelling of the story and making it more modern. You move from an actual physical on the ground garden to a roof garden in New York City. You change from just besides the massive house to Central Park and all the natural history museums and things that are in New York City. I have never been to either of these places. I've not been to New York City. I haven't even been to Silicon Valley. I live in the Southwest. Haven't been there. It's a goal. One of the reasons we're homeschooling is to travel. So I don't know how big New York is on my list, but maybe. I'm not a huge city person. But back to this. I love this. This is really, really good. I'm a big fan of The Secret Garden. I'm a garden person. I like green. I live in the Southwest. There's not a lot of green. I miss green. I grew up in Hawaii. And I've always kind of been obsessed with that story and just the idea of English gardens. So this brings that into the modern era. So I loved how they did this. I think it would make a probably decent film, but I doubt they would ever do it because people have obsession with these Victorian melodramas. And yes, I will link my opinions of the film, which again, they do some weird stuff besides having to create villains, which they don't in this book. Thank goodness. They do not fall into the trap of the movie. There is no villains here. The children are the villains within themselves. But again, I like how because in the Victorian era, they didn't really understand mental health issues. In this one, they cover that. So, and they work around how it can be actually very, very real. And so, it's a very, very, very good book. I highly recommend it, particularly if this is, I'm trying to think what age range. You could probably, depending on you could probably read this to elementary school kids. They would probably get it just because of the formatting, as opposed to the Little Prince, not the Little Princess, sorry. Same author, wrong book. The Secret Garden, which is a little, again, Victorian melodrama, because that's what it is. But if you're definitely doing a unit, middle school age, even late elementary, I think could get through definitely the younger kids could get through this. But again, it's a maturity level, particularly because they're talking about some hard topics, death, and anxiety, and kind of understanding family issues and dynamics, so you can judge your children how good on their mindset. Even if you're reading this separately as opposed to reading it with the original novel, if you have kids who are, say, a sibling or something has anxiety issues, this is a good book to look at because it does examine that, particularly through Colin's point of view, and you have the therapist who explains it to another child of what's really kind of going on. So that's another good thing for this. And how you can find gardens anywhere, not anyway. It's past my bedtime. I'm a toddler. So, but again, fantastic book, great on its own, or specifically as Penton Lake homeschoolers, partnering with the original novel, where you can look at the contrast and look how it is modernized and made relevant to modern day. So that's the end of this review. Again, fantastic book. Highly recommended. I really enjoyed it, and I'm an adult. But if you like what you see, be sure to check out the rest of the channel. I will link my reviews of the original Secret Garden and the 1995, I think it is, it's the 1995 film. I talk about both of those. So, as well as check out the rest of the stuff. I do books like this. This is actually my first graphic novel, though I hopefully will cover more, because this has really piqued my interest. I cover fiction, nonfiction, various different films, both fun and educational. I will have some travel videos. By the time you see it, I should have at least 2 sets, just from family stuff. Hopefully more is coming. Some education stuff. My daughter is literally about to turn 3 as of this shooting. By the time you see this, she'll be getting closer to 4. So I will be adding more secular homeschooling stuff as the time goes on and it becomes more relevant. I will also be adding, I have a couple board game reviews that are up that will be up by the time this comes out. I've shot like 3 or 4 already. I have a couple more that my daughter's getting for her birthday, and I think there's a couple more on her Christmas list. So I will cover those here in 2023. Again, I'm in 2022. So this is me from the past. As you will periodically watch my videos and watch The Office behind me periodically change, get cleaner, messier, cleaner, messier. This is probably one of our only toddler-free zones. Not that she can't get in here at this point. It's also normally a cat-free zone, which is the other big thing. The Calico is one of 4. We have 3, which by the time you guys see this will be 2-year-olds that are ranging between the 15 and 13 pounds of very friendly but very kitteny cats. So, yeah, that's the end of this video. If you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a positive comment if you have one. And I will see you again soon. Thank you.